All right, so I'm reading The Great Reformer, Francis and the Making of a Radical Pope by Austin, I'm not even sure how to say that, Ivaray. Ever since the passing of the Pope, there's been enormous interest in his life and the papal conclave and who the next Pope is going to be. And right now, the whole world is fascinated with the first ever American Pope, Pope Leo XIV. Um, I am a Catholic. I look up. I very much look up to this man. I felt this. I just felt compelled to learn more about his life and what motivated him, and I just wanted to know. I just wanted to get to know the guy. So I really admire him. He's exactly the kind of person we need in this crazy world right now, and I want to read the biography about him, which was released pretty early in his papacy. What do we got here? Yeah, 2014. So a year or two after he was elected. Yeah, I'm excited to do this. I think I won't do the tabs just yet. I think I'm like starting. I'm just starting to use tabs. I haven't used tabs before, and I found that I really don't know what I want to tab yet. So we'll put this away for another time. But I just want to just skim along. I've already read the first chapter. I'm really enjoying this book. I just want to reread it, skim along, and just kind of just mention any of the stuff that like got my attention, or just I feel the need to like comment on, or just I don't know. I just want to like go through this again and point out the highlights, I guess. I don't know. Well, let's try. Chapter 1, Far Away and Long Ago, 1936 to 1957. Now, I'll go ahead and read the first line to give you an idea of just how much this book hooks you in at first, and give you an idea of what Pope Francis wanted to bring attention to. Excuse me, my dogs are going back in the house. The first Pope born of immigrants in the New World chose for his debut journey outside Rome a small Italian island on whose stunning beaches thousands of bloated bodies had over the years turned up with the tide. Yeah. Francis had learned from newspaper reports soon after his March 13, 2013 election that more than 25,000 North Africans had lost their lives this way. Far more than the 6,000 who have died in the U.S. desert crossing from Mexico. Who knew? Appalled that few seemed aware to care, he opted to make Lampedusa, 180 miles off the coast of Africa, his first papal visit to the peripheries of Europe. There, on July 8, he wept for the dead and made migration a pro-life issue. Yeah, that's quite the opening paragraph, and gives you an idea of what was important to Francis and what didn't seem all that important to other people at the time. And when it said who knew, it meant it. Apparently, before Francis, hardly anyone paid attention to this. European news agencies just barely covered it, and Francis put a bright spotlight on the tragedy that was happening every day in the Mediterranean, as refugees and asylum seekers desperately tried to make their voyages across the Mediterranean onto European shores for a better life, for escaping turmoil at home, chaos, death, war, whatever it is. That's the kind of guy Francis was. So that's partly why I got this book, because I knew Francis was the Pope we've been needing for a long time, and the kind of leader we need as well. Anyway, I'm going to read silently from here on out and just point out things that I want to mention. Skimming, because I've already read this chapter. I just want to reread and basically make some content out of this, because I haven't had the idea till now, after reading him, I want to make something out of this, I think. So let's give it a shot. You know what? After skimming real fast, rather scanning this page and the next few, I kind of feel like I want to read these first few pages in their entirety. It's just too powerful an opening to ignore. The rest of the chapter doesn't read like this, so I feel like this should be an exception right here. It is the very beginning of the book and really wants to give you an idea of what Francis was about. So, okay, so after I said a pro-life issue, which obviously it's not political, pro-life, pro-choice. We're not talking about that. This is about human beings and valuing the sanctity and dignity of human life. That's what it means by pro-life. Is the mic on? Oh yeah, it is. Okay, good. All right. The Mass he celebrated on the island's sports field was a penitential Eucharist, one that begged forgiveness. During the homily, he took God's famous question to Cain in Genesis, "Where is your brother?" and asked, "Who is responsible for this blood?" Speaking from an altar made of wood of one of the capsized rafts, clinging to his white skull cap in the wind, he said he was reminded of a character called L'Inominato in Alessandro Mazzoni's novel The Betrothed, a tyrant who is nameless and faceless. Then he switched to Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan. Likening us, he always included himself, to the Levite and the priest who passed by on the other side. We'll see our brother half dead on the side of the road, and perhaps we say to ourselves, I forgot to say it, quote, we see our brother half dead on the side of the road, and perhaps we say to ourselves, poor soul, and then go on our way. He ventured. But the real sting was in his denunciation of what he called, quote, a culture of comfort, which makes us think only of ourselves and makes us insensitive to the cries of other people. Unquote. It caused people to live now in, quote, soap bubbles, unquote. Thus, he said, we have, quote, globalized indifferences. Globalized indifference, unquote. The new Pope had come to afflict the comfortable. He had linked those who lived well to the penniless migrants who died at sea. But he knew guilt alone was no good. Francis was a member of the Society of Jesus, and while he had long been a bishop and dispensed from his Jesuit vows, he continued to put S.J. after his name. He was deeply imbued with the spirituality of the Society's founder, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, creator of the famous spiritual exercises, who had urged people in prayer to beg the Holy Spirit, or as he put it, to ask for the grace, to feel what was needed. Delight at seeing Jesus, say, or awe at the sight of the crowds, or sadness at the foot of the cross. Now, in Lampedusa, the first Jesuit pope led the world on a spiritual exercise, urging anyone listening to ask for the grace, to cry for our indifference, to cry for the cruelty in the world that is in us, that is in those who anonymously make decisions that produce dramas like these. He was inviting the world to feel, because unless the heart was in play, nothing would change. Suddenly Lampedusa, and the tragedy that is symbolized, appeared on the lips of newsreaders, who explained how unstable boats overpacked by human traffickers often capsized in the crossings, and how vehicles of hope turned into floating death traps. A result of sorts came 3 months after the Pope's visit, when 366 Somalis and Eritreans died after a fire broke out on their boat close to Lampedusa. The world for once sat up and took note. A year later, it was still news when divers found the ship, with the body still in the wreckage, huddled together at the bottom of the sea. Francis, arriving in Assisi the day after the boat fire, declared, quote, "a day of tears," unquote, for the victims. Politicians and newspaper editors, sensing a new unease, began to say that maybe immigration policy wasn't just about how to keep people out. Maybe it should also be about how to bring people in. A year later, the European Union created a new agency, Frontex, whose ships and helicopters would rescue migrants in peril. Francis had broken a soap bubble. Later that year, he went to another island on the peripheries of Europe, celebrating Mass at the shrine of Our Lady of Bonaria in Sardinia, which had given its name to the Argentine capital. There he spoke to jobless miners, telling them that he knew what it was like to suffer from financial crisis because his parents lived through the World Depression and had often spoken of it. He had learned that, quote, "where there is no work, there is no dignity," unquote, he told them, adding that it was an, quote, "economic system that brings about this tragedy, an economic system that has its center and an idol which is called money," unquote. Migration and jobs, these were the issues with which he began his papacy, the issues the poor cared about. He knew what it took to leave one land for another, quote, "that fortitude, as well as the great pain that comes from being uprooted," unquote, as he once put it. Speaking of his grandmother Rosa, Francis was born to an American nation forged from millions of similar deracinations. Nostalgia, from the Greek words nostos and alga, a yearning to return to the place, ran in his veins. "When we lose it," he said in 2010, "we abandon our elderly. Caring for our old people means honoring our past, the place we come from." On Lampedusa, he had gone out in a boat and laid a floral wreath in the sea. There was a reason why the fate of the migrants struck him. As he said in his homily on the island, "like a painful thorn in my heart." Maybe they reminded him of the time, many years before he was born, when 500 passengers, almost all in steerage class, drowned off the northeast coast of Brazil. It was October 1927 when an Italian passenger ship en route to Buenos Aires went down after a cracked propeller shaft damaged the hull. The Principessa Mafalda was among the fastest and most luxurious ships of her day, the transport of choice for celebrities such as the Argentine tango singer Carlos Gardel, it was Italy's Titanic, a disaster of human arrogance and incompetence. Jorge Mario's grandparents, Giovanni Angelo Bergoglio and Rosa Margarita Vassallo di Bergoglio, together with their 6 children, including Francis's father, Mario, had bought steerage class tickets on that ship. But because the proceeds of the sale of their Turin coffee shop had taken longer than expected to arrive, at the last minute they had swapped the tickets for passage on the Giulio Cesare a month later. Their lucky escape was part of Bergoglio family lore. Wow. So he could relate. He could relate. At least, certainly, his own family history had a similar tragedy happen to him, or to his grandparents. That's, my lord. When I read this part, 25,000 dying. I didn't know. I felt ashamed that I didn't know about that. The news hardly ever, or at least American news, hardly ever covers anything going on outside America, and you have to really be paying attention to news outside of America to really find out things like this happening. And I'm ashamed that, it's only recently I've embraced being Catholic again, within the last few years. So I never really knew about Pope Francis's visit to Lampedusa and bringing to light that everyday tragedy in the Mediterranean. So I know now, and I think I'll be paying more attention to what popes are doing, because it's sad. It's sad that so many, even people who lived around the Mediterranean, didn't really know about this. Yeah. My God, Italy's Titanic. It could have been his own family. Yeah. But yeah, what really also stuck out to me were these quotes of his, that we have a culture of comfort which makes us think only of ourselves and makes us insensitive. I kind of have to agree. We live very cushioned lives, whether we know it or not. Comfort is king. Convenience. We always, I guess this is pretty damning of modern society, but we've forgotten how to live with hardship and difficulty, and just acknowledging that, pain is part of life, discomfort, inconvenience. We only embrace comfort because we've been kind of brought up to think of comfort and convenience as the ideal. I blame that on advertising. I think marketing always tries to push that kind of stuff on people by making their services or apps or whatever seem as convenient as possible and celebrating these things. But, they're just trying to make money and sell you something. So, is it really true? Well, I don't know if it matters now, because it's already kind of how we see things. It's the way that our culture is already, it's already what our culture is attuned to. Yeah. Francis basically took a mirror right to us and showed us how how callous we can be. And globalized indifference. Whew. Globalized indifference. I guess it's just this modern day. I don't know if capitalism is exactly to blame, but maybe it is. Maybe modern day capitalism, which incentivizes those things I just talked about, have, because capitalism is now like the world system, you could say, communism, it's still around, but it's a shadow of its former self. It's an experiment that largely failed during the 20th century. And socialism is, still around in Europe especially, and that's where it's worked out. But even in those countries, they are dealing with, they have this indifference. I don't know. It's tough to talk about these things, and that's why we need we need a wake up call every now and then. But anyway, this was a very powerful start. I'm gonna go ahead and start skimming, and just, if something moves me, I'll just talk about it. I want to recount a joke that was just told here. It's talking about the emigration of Italians to Argentina, and according to an old Latin American joke, Mexicans are descended from Aztecs, Peruvians are descended from Incas, Argentinians are descended from boats. So much of Argentina is immigrants. It's people from Italy and other parts of Europe, Spain even, coming for a better life. But instead of America, they went south to Argentina. But here in America, we also have a history of Italian immigration. 19th century, I think, late 19th century. So it's just funny, descended from boats. So you could say, that's an American joke in general, right? Except for Native Americans and people like me who are descended from the tribes that lived here in the Americas. Everyone else came by boat, so you can apply that everywhere, I guess. To every country here.